Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of Golden Era.
Today, I'll be taking you on a visit to one of the seven sisters of the Northeast, who finds herself surrounded on almost all sides by Bangladesh. Tripura was a princely state till 1949, when it joined the Indian Union, and its name is probably derived from King Tripur. If one is traveling by road, one has to travel past Silchar, and that is the way we went, en route to the land that gave us the genius of Sachin Dev Burman. There is another theory about the name Tripura. Tri means water and pra means near, and the name thus indicates a nearness to water. It is believed that in old days Tripura used to be near the Bay of Bengal. Though a landlocked state now, there is an abundance of lakes, and the first sight that made us pause and admire was this palace on a lake. Neer Mahal, as it is called, was the summer palace, and the vastness of the lake on which it is built must have ensured cool climes for the royalties in summer. The palace was built in 1930 by Maharaja Veer Bikram Manikya and assimilates Hindu and Mughal architectural styles. The land of such grand architecture is also the land of rich cultural heritage, especially musical traditions, always encouraged by the royal lineages.
বিচেন্দ্র মহারাজের সময় থেকেই বাংলা গানের প্রচলন হয়েছে। তার আগে আমাদের নিজেদের কালচার আলকা, আমাদের কালচার আছে, যেমন গড়িয়া গড়িয়া পূজা আছে, কের পূজা আছে, পূজা পার্বণে তো কালচার রক্ষা করে আইছে। ত্রিপুরার মাঝে খুবই গান বাজনার প্রচলন খুব বেশি। আমার বাবা যে আছে বীরেন্দ্র কিশোর মানিক্য, তিনি তো এমন একটা যন্ত্র নাই যেটা উনি জানেন না। বাঁশি, বেহালা, সেতার, এসরাস, তবল, বেঞ্জো, গিটার যাবতীয় তিনি জানতেন।
On the southwest extremity of Assam, a tiny little landmass resembling the shape of a cashew nut is Tripura, the home of 2.8 million people. Down the pages of history, Tripura goes down as a place religiously devoted to finest experiments of art and culture.
Tripura is a historical famous state. It has more than 3,000 years old history, and the Tripuris are originally Mongoloid people and a part of Boro dynasty of Assam. In fact, after Ahomia invention in Assam, a group of Boro took shelter in the southern part of Boro kingdom, and they set up Tripuri kingdom in some 13 or 1400 years ago. Since then, we are known as Barak.
There are so many communities, the Burma communities, Jamaita communities, Tripuri communities, here to be in good relations now. we are the second largest, and largest community is the Deborma, then we are the second largest, then the Tripuri, then the Jamatia, and our language and colors also almost same.
আমাদের রাজবাড়ির মাঝে বাংলা ভাষা, নেপালি ভাষা, ইংরেজি ভাষা, গুজরাটি, ত্রিপুরি, মহারাষ্ট্রিয়ান যাবতীয় ভাষায় কসমোপলিটন হয়ে গেল। তা তখন আমার অবস্থা এমন হলো, এখন আমি কোন ভাষায় কথা বলবো আমি এখন বুঝতে পারি না আর কি।
We have our own language, namely Kokborok. It is a rich one, but it could not develop because the Maharajas did not cooperated, especially during 17th and 18th centuries. So it had to suffer some sort of stagnation, but now it is developing day by day.
Here in Tripura, what we see today is a unified version of three distinct cultural heritages. As we have said before, the Manipuri culture, the Bengali culture, and the original tribal culture. They have merged together to give shape and content to a unique expression of cultural heritage.
Yet another magnificent palace we came across was the Ujjayanta Palace, erected in 1901 by Maharaja Radhakishore Manikya. It covers an area of 1 square kilometer and is adorned by a Mughal-style garden, pools and fountains. Today, this exquisite structure houses the State Legislative Assembly.
This is a photograph of Maharaja Birendra Krishna Manikya, and below it is the crest, Tripura crest, state crest, which has the motto in Sanskrit, Kila Bida Birata Sharamikam. Valor and bravery is the essence of life. This is the motto of the Tripura state. This is Maharani Tulsivati Devi. She opened the first one of the first girls' schools in India. This is a photograph of Rabindranath Tagore and Maharaja Radhakrishna Manikya.
এখন রাধাকৃষ্ণ মানিক্য, বীরেন্দ্র কৃষ্ণ মানিক্য, বীরচন্দ্র বীরে বিক্রমা এই সময় থেকে তিনি বছর বছর এখানে আইতো। প্রায় 2-3 বছর পর পরে আগে প্রায় আসতো, কিন্তু রাধাকৃষ্ণ মানিক্য স্বর্গহনের পরে 3 বার আইছে।
With such a rich cultural heritage, it is therefore no wonder that Rabindranath Tagore had developed a very intimate relation with this princely state. He was in fact the friend, philosopher and guide to 4 generations of rulers in Tripura. There is an interesting incident recorded in the history of Tripura. When Tagore was hardly 20 years old, and to his credit there was only one book of poems, that is Bhagno Hriday, or Broken Heart. A copy of this book was handed over to the then Maharaja of Tripura, Maharaj Bir Chandra. He had gone through the book and was surprised to find so much of talents in this young poet. In an unusual gesture, he had sent his minister all the way from here to Jodasaku, just to convey to the young poet that the ruler of Tripura saw in him the prospect of a great poet in future.
The Bengali influence on the culture of Tripura probably has a lot to do with Rabindranath Tagore's association with the state. But while the Bengali influence is a well-known fact, what is less known is the contribution the royal houses of Tripura used to make towards fueling the fire of the Bengali intelligentsia.
This association had got a indirect contribution in the cultural history of Bengal, as I said. You know, in the last part of 19th century, when Professor J.C. Bose was in England carrying out his famous research, he was stuck up there for want of funds. And the situation in Tripura was also equally bad because of the fact that there was an earthquake in 1897 and the entire palace was demolished by that earthquake. And at the same time, the Maharaja had settled the marriage of his son, young Prince Birendra Kishore. At that point of time, an appeal came from Tagore to rescue Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose from his predicament. He was in two minds whether to leave the project unfinished or to run the risk of losing his job. In those days, Maharaja Radhakishore of Tripura had sent a total amount of 50,000 rupees, and only one condition was imposed, that as long as he was alive on this earth, no one should ever come to know that the contribution went from him.
About 55 kilometers away from Agartala, on a hilltop in Udaipur, stands the Tripura Sundari temple. Maharaja Dhanya Manikya built it in 1501 AD. The lake in front of the temple not only enhances the beauty of the surroundings, but also gives it a certain unique characteristic. Devotees feed the fish and tortoise in the lake as a means of obtaining divine blessings. Live fish is sold here, and it is said that releasing one into the lake also ensures divine blessings, as it is an act of punya.
भविता न च मे तस्मदन प्रिय अभ्यसते च इयं धर्मं संविधान यज्ञन तनस्यावित श्रद्धावन मुक्त सुबलकन प्राप्नात् पुनिको असुदवेश पाठ संवाद विमकुलमन वैश प्रसाद सूत बानिमं गुज्जमहं परयुगं कृष्ण सकत करता श्यामराजन संगबान विवेकेश्वर जी पुण्यं संजीवन तच्च संसरूपमत विष्णुराजन सिंहपुरा यत्र योगेश्वर कृष्ण तत्र श्री भगवान तेरिमति.
Tripura is inhabited by 19 tribes as well as other communities like Bengalis and Manipuris. And the end result has been a composite ethnic culture. Its geographical location has resulted in an influx of Chakma refugees from neighboring Bangladesh. That, combined with the economic dominance of Bengalis, dwindling jhum cultivation, etc., has led to the bigger problem of insurgency.
We have a very rich culture and tradition. So, by a way of mixing of coming of other people from the other parts of India is not affecting us. The real problem lies in economic development.
There are about 70 to 80,000 Chakmas living in Tripura today. They have their own way of life, distinct language, distinct culture. They have their traditions, and these Chakmas had been living in Tripura since time immemorial. But in 1940s, during the partition of India, there are some people who migrated from Chittagong hill tract, southeastern part of Bangladesh, due to political reasons.
Due to unprecedented influx of refugees from the then East Bengal, especially during 1950 and 60s, the socio-economic pattern of Tripura and Tripura tribes had been badly affected. more than 70,000 acres of land and have been transferred to non-tribal, and the total economic was captured by the better developed Bengali community. Thus, as difficulties has arisen in Delhi 70 or 80s of this century. The insurgency problem is mainly due to this situation.
Tripura has a history of insurgency since when the TNB movement started in Tripura. Bijoy Uncle started the movement, and since then the insurgency history started in Tripura, and after that when Bijoy Uncle had agreements with Rajiv Gandhi, they have settled down, and by this time many other insurgent groups came up, and which has affected the village life of the people here. They are, they cannot stay peacefully there because anybody is getting kidnapped, anybody is getting tortured, and anybody is getting killed without any reasons. So this is getting very, taking a serious turn, and government is unable to, give any protection from the insurgents.
The young generation, they found there is no place for employment or business or any kind of developmental activities, and the scope is very much limited for the tribal people. So the demand for self-determination has arisen, and probably this might have led them for involving in extremist activities.
Most of the Chakmas, they still live in villages. In Agartala, in towns, they are only about 10%. Not even 10%, it will be less than 10%. In villages, the picture of the Chakmas is not very good because a lot of Chakmas are still poor, and they are basically depending on jhum cultivation, and jhum cultivation is dwindling down in Tripura because of discouragement of the government. They don't want any jhum cultivation in Tripura, and also land is getting scarce. They can't move around, and many of them are also trying to look for other places like Assam. A few of them have already migrated to Assam.
The army is a highly visible presence all over the northeast, and our army personnel are not just gun-wielding men on the lookout for peace breakers. The army does an invaluable service by providing medical assistance in areas where medical infrastructure is inadequate. And because the gun-toting image might scare people, the health check-up day is also a time for fun and games. These sports and cultural events aim to break the ice, and it did look like everyone was having a good time.
And when one talks about the cultural heritage of Tripura, and along with it, its great artistic heritage, one has to go back to the natural beauty of Tripura. In one way, the the rhythm of expression of the people of Tripura. Whatever may be the media through which they are expressing themselves. Maybe it's a flute, maybe it's a trumpet, or maybe it's a piece of handicrafts, or maybe it's a song. You will find that there is a typical equilibrium which has been synthesized from the nature itself.
If there is any common thread that unites all tribal cultures, it probably is the exquisite handloom and handicraft products that they produce. I can never stop admiring the effortless ease with which the tribal artisan works, and I hope with all my heart that this tradition never gets wiped out by the onslaught of modernization. কাঁদিব না ফাগুন গেলে বিদায় দিব তারে মণিদীপ জেলে কাঁদিব না ফাগুন গেলে The land that produced Sachindev Burman, S.D. Burman, the land that inspired Tagore, a beautiful land that inspires the muse, that is what Tripura is. I too was moved by its loveliness and came away with many a wonderful memory that I often remember and get comfort and inspiration from.